You know that moment when you check your investment account and realize your money earned more this month than your entire paycheck? It sounds like something that only happens to people born into wealth or people who got lucky with some early stock pick. But it happens to ordinary people every single day. The difference between them and everyone else is not luck, or a higher salary, or some secret investing strategy. The difference is that they understood something about wealth that takes years to fully appreciate, and they stayed in the game long enough to see it play out. There are 3 specific points on the wealth building path where everything shifts, not just the numbers in your brokerage account, but the way your entire financial life feels. These are the moments when saving stops feeling like a sacrifice and starts feeling like a strategy. When investing stops being an act of faith and becomes something you can actually see working in real time. But the frustrating part is that the early stretch of this journey is so slow, so boring, and so unrewarding that the vast majority of people quit before they ever reach the first milestone. In this video, we are going to walk through all 3 of these turning points. We will break down the exact math, the psychology behind each shift, and what changes in your daily life when you cross each one. By the end, you will understand why the people who seem lucky with money usually just had the patience to let the math finish what it started. My name is Ivan. Before we get into the specific milestones, we need to talk about why they exist in the first place, and it comes down to one concept that sounds simple on the surface, but is surprisingly hard for the human brain to process. Exponential growth. When you first start investing, you picture wealth growing in a straight line. You put in $500 a month, you earn a little return, and your balance slowly creeps up. Year after year, it feels like you are doing all the work and your money is just sitting there watching, and that feeling is not wrong. In the early years, your contributions are doing the heavy lifting. Your investment returns are tiny because the balance is small. You are basically hand carrying your financial snowball up the hill. But compound growth does not work in a straight line. It works in a curve. And the nature of that curve means the first few years barely move the needle, while the later years move it dramatically. Think of it like rolling a snowball down a mountainside. At the top, the ball is small and light. It barely picks up any snow. You are pushing it, shaping it, doing all the physical labor yourself. But as it rolls further and gets bigger, it starts collecting snow faster and faster because its surface area keeps growing. Eventually, the ball is so large and moving so fast that it would keep growing even if you stopped pushing entirely. That is exactly how money works when you invest consistently over decades. And on this journey, there are 3 clear moments where you can feel the shift, where the math tilts in your favor and the snowball starts rolling on its own. Each of these milestones is not just a financial number, it is a psychological turning point. Your relationship with money changes, your stress levels change, and the way you make decisions about your career, your spending, and your future all change with it. So let us start with the first one, the one that sounds small on paper but is arguably the hardest and most important to reach. The first milestone, $100,000. There's a reason that seasoned investors always say the first $100,000 is the hardest money you will ever make. And they are painfully right about that, because this first milestone is not really about the number itself. It is a test of whether you can stay disciplined and keep investing month after month when it feels like nothing is happening. A test of whether you can resist the urge to spend that money on something immediate and visible. And for a lot of people, it is a test they do not pass. They start strong for a few months, maybe even a year or 2, and then life gets in the way. A new apartment they want, a trip their friends are planning, a car that would make the commute a little nicer. One by one, the contributions shrink, the deposits get skipped, and the brokerage account goes untouched until they forget the password entirely. Let us walk through the state year math so you can see exactly why this phase feels so brutal. If you invest $500 every month, which is roughly $125 per week, into a low-cost index fund earning an average of 8% per year, it will take you about 11 years to cross the $100,000 mark. 11 years. That is over a decade of watching your balance crawl upward, while the people around you are upgrading cars, upgrading apartments, and filling their social media with vacation photos from places you have never been. During those 11 years, you would have contributed about $64,000 of your own money. The remaining $36,000 came from your investment returns. So roughly a third of that first $100,000 was generated by compound growth. That might not sound impressive right now, but it is the first quiet signal that something is starting to work beneath the surface. Your money is beginning to produce its own offspring, even if those offspring are still small. Now, here is where the mental trap catches so many people. They look at that timeline and think, If it took me 11 years to make 100,000, it will take me 110 years to make a million. And that calculation makes them feel defeated before they even start. But that math is completely wrong, because wealth does not grow at a steady pace, it accelerates. And the proof of that acceleration shows up immediately after you cross this first milestone. Going from 100,000 to 200,000, that only takes about 5.5 more years. You just doubled your net worth in half the time it took to build the first 100,000. Why? Because now your investment base is large enough to generate meaningful growth on its own. At $100,000 with 8% returns, your portfolio is earning roughly $8,000 a year just from sitting there. That is almost as much as your annual contributions of $6,000. Your money and your effort are now pulling roughly equal weight. And keep going a bit further. From 200,000 to 300,000 takes about 4 years. From 300,000 to 400,000, even less. Each $100,000 milestone arrives faster than the one before it. The snowball is picking up speed, and if you zoom in on your portfolio around year 16, you will see something remarkable happen. That is the year when your investment growth officially overtakes your total contributions for the first time. Up until that point, your balance was mostly money you put in. After year 16, your balance is mostly money the market gave you. You contributed about $96,000 and your growth crossed $97,000. From that year forward, you are the minority shareholder in your own wealth. The compound growth owns the majority stake. This is the moment where something shifts in your head. You stop thinking purely like a saver, someone who hoards money by cutting expenses, and you start thinking like an investor, someone who understands that every dollar deployed today could become $5 or $10 in the future. When you see that a single good year in the market can add $10,000 to your account without you lifting a finger, something clicks. You realize you are not just saving money anymore, you are building an asset that works for you while you sleep. And once you feel that shift, you never go back to thinking about money the same way. If you are in the early stages right now, still watching the balance crawl, still wondering whether this entire process is even worth it, let me be direct with you. Every single month of consistent investing is building the foundation for what comes next. You are not failing. You are in the invisible part of the process, the part where the snowball is still small and the mountain ahead looks impossibly tall, but you are already rolling. And the people who stay in motion through this phase are the ones who eventually watch the math take over. This is where I want to introduce two people you are going to meet again throughout this video. Rich Richard and Poor Peter. They both earn the same salary. They both started working at the same age. The only difference is what they do with $400 a month. Rich Richard takes that $400 and adds it to his investment contributions. On top of the base $500, he was already investing. He is now putting $900 a month into a diversified portfolio. He drives a used car. He cooks most of his meals at home. He does not wear designer labels. From the outside, nobody would guess he's building serious wealth. He looks like everybody else in the office, maybe even a little less flashy than everybody else. Poor Peter takes that same $400 and spends it on a car payment. Not a ridiculous car, just a nice mid-range sedan with leather seats and a decent sound system. It makes him feel successful. He looks great pulling into the parking lot at work. His coworkers compliment the car. He still invests the base $500 a month, which is better than what a lot of people do. But that $400 gap is going to compound over time in a way that is almost hard to believe. After 25 years at 8% returns, Rich Richard's portfolio has grown to roughly $950,000. Poor Peter sits at about $475,000. Same salary, same starting point, same number of years, but Rich Richard has almost double the wealth, and the gap is mostly due to compound growth on those extra contributions. That $400 a month did not just add up, it multiplied. Over 25 years, that monthly difference created a gap of nearly $500,000. And the uncomfortable truth is, poor Peter will never figure out where the money went, because it disappeared slowly, $400 at a time, into something that lost value the moment he drove it off the lot. Meanwhile, Rich Richard's $400 went into something that gained value every single year for 25 years. One choice depreciated, the other compounded. And over decades, those two curves move in opposite directions so dramatically that they create entirely different financial realities for two people who, on paper, had every advantage equally distributed. That is the hidden cost of looking wealthy before you actually are. And the real kicker? Poor Peter will probably replace that car every 5 to 7 years, restarting the payment cycle each time. Rich Richard just keeps driving the same used car, And every month that old car stays on the road is another month his money compounds instead of depreciates. Now, let us talk about the second milestone, the one that this video's title says most people never reach, and there is a good reason for that. The second milestone, $500,000. If the first $100,000 is the hardest, the second milestone at $500,000 is the most underrated, because this is the moment where your financial life stops being fragile and starts being stable. This is where your portfolio crosses a line that changes everything about how you feel when you wake up in the morning. At $500,000 invested and earning an average 8% annual return, your portfolio generates roughly $40,000 a year on its own. That is not a symbolic number. That is a real salary. That is more than the median individual income in many countries around the world, and you earned it without trading a single extra hour of your time. Think about what that means in practical terms. If you lost your job tomorrow, your investments would still be producing $40,000 a year. You would not need to rush into the first available position out of desperation. You could take a month or two to actually think about what you want to do next. You could negotiate from a position of strength instead of fear. You could walk away from an opportunity that does not feel right and wait for one that does. That breathing room changes how you carry yourself in every professional interaction, even if you never actually use it. This is the milestone that buys you something money cannot usually buy. Options. The option to leave a toxic workplace without financial ruin. The option to take a pay cut for a career you actually care about. The option to take 6 months off to spend with your family or travel or just think clearly for the first time in years. Before $500,000, every financial decision carries a weight of anxiety. After $500,000, that weight starts to lift in a way that affects your sleep, your mood, and even your relationships. And the math behind this milestone reveals something fascinating. By the time you reach $500,000, investing $500 a month at 8%, you have been at it for roughly 25 and a half years. But of that $500,000, you only contributed about $153,000 of your own money. The remaining $347,000 came entirely from compound growth. Your investment growth was more than double your total contributions. That is the compounding snowball in full motion. Your money has been earning money for so long that its earnings have earnings of their own. At this stage, something else changes in your psychology. You stop thinking about money as a survival tool and start thinking about it as a strategic tool. Instead of asking, "Can I afford this?" you start asking, "Is this the best use of this capital?" You start noticing opportunities that used to feel completely out of reach. Maybe you consider investing in rental property. Maybe you shift a portion of your portfolio into bonds for added stability. Maybe you start exploring dividend-focused investments that produce quarterly income you can actually see landing in your account. Your financial conversations change too. You are no longer debating whether to invest at all. You are debating how to optimize an engine that is already running. And that shift from building the engine to fine-tuning it is a completely different experience. It is calmer, more confident, more creative. You are no longer trying to survive the financial game. You are trying to win it on your own terms. This brings me to something I want to mention for anyone who is watching this and wondering where they stand on this journey. I built a free tool that can actually help you figure that out. There is a quiz linked in the first link in the description below. It takes a few minutes, asks about your specific financial situation, and then maps out a plan tailored to where you actually are. Not generic advice that applies to everyone. Something based on your numbers, your timeline, your goals. If that sounds useful, take the quiz. The link is right there in the description. And here's the part that surprises almost everyone who reaches this milestone. You will not feel rich. You will probably look around at your life and think, "I still drive the same car. I still live in the same neighborhood. Nothing has really changed." But everything has changed, because what you have now is a financial cushion large enough to absorb almost any shock life can throw at you. An unexpected medical bill, you can handle it without touching a credit card. A recession that cuts your income for a year, your portfolio keeps compounding in the background. A family emergency that requires travel and time off work. You can be there without doing mental math about whether you can afford to miss a paycheck. That quiet certainty, that knowledge that you can withstand the unexpected, that is what $500,000 feels like. It does not feel like luxury, it feels like safety. And safety, for most people, is worth more than any luxury could ever be. You stop clenching every time your phone buzzes with a notification from your bank. You stop dreading the arrival of unexpected envelopes in the mail. The background hum of financial anxiety that you have carried for years, sometimes without even realizing it, finally goes quiet. This is also the milestone where the gap between Rich Richard and Poor Peter becomes almost irreversible. Rich Richard, with his $900 a month in contributions, likely hit 500,000 years before Poor Peter. And because compounding accelerates with a larger base, every year of Head Start creates a bigger and bigger advantage. Poor Peter is still building wealth, which is commendable. But the gap between them is no longer just about money, it is about options. Rich Richard has them. Poor Peter is still working toward them. Now let us move to the final milestone, the one that carries an almost mythical weight in personal finance. The third milestone, $1 million. Let me tell you what happens when your net worth finally crosses 7 figures, because it is nothing like what the advertisements and motivational posts would have you believe. There is no champagne moment. There is no fireworks display on your brokerage app. The people who reach $1 million in net worth through consistent investing over decades rarely even notice the exact day it happens. They check their portfolio on a random Tuesday and realize they crossed the line sometime in the past week. And the feeling is not excitement, it is relief. Deep, quiet, exhale from your chest relief, because reaching $1 million this way, the slow way, is not a moment of triumph. It is a moment of validation. It is proof that the boring strategy worked, that all those years of skipping the upgrade, driving the older car, and saying not yet to the things everyone around you was buying, it actually paid off. You did the thing that almost nobody has the patience to do, and now the math is undeniable. Let us look at the numbers. If you invested $500 a month at 8% average annual returns, you would cross the $1 million mark in roughly 35 years. Over that time, you would have contributed about $210,000 of your own money. The rest, over $936,000, came from compound growth. 78% of your $1 million was not money you earned and deposited. It was money your money earned for you. You did roughly 1/5 of the work. The market did the other 4/5. That is the full power of time plus consistency plus compound returns, and it is available to anyone who refuses to quit. And after you cross this line, the math gets almost absurd. To go from 1 million to 2 million, you would only need about 8 more years at the same rate. Think about that for a second. It took 35 years to make the first million and only 8 to make the second. That is because your investment base is now so large that even a modest annual return generates massive absolute gains. 8% on $1 million is $80,000 a year. Your portfolio is now earning more in a single year than most people's entire salary, and it does not take weekends off, does not call in sick, and does not need a vacation. This is the stage where wealthy people start to think about money in a fundamentally different way. They stop measuring purchases in dollars and start measuring them in opportunity cost. A $200 dinner does not cost $200 to a millionaire investor. It costs the $500 or $600 that money could have become over the next 20 years if left to compound. They do not become stingy people who refuse to enjoy their lives. They become intentional. They spend freely on things that matter to them, experiences with family, meaningful travel, education, and they ruthlessly cut spending on things that exist only to impress people they do not even care about. And the Rich Richard and Poor Peter divide. At this stage, it is enormous. Rich Richard, with his higher contributions and the extra years of compounding, likely crossed the $1 million mark 5 to 7 years before Poor Peter. And during those extra years, his portfolio kept growing. By the time Poor Peter reaches his first million, Rich Richard might already be approaching 1.5 million. Same salary for their entire careers. Same opportunities, same economy. One just understood earlier that the car payment was costing him far more than the sticker price on the windshield. Now, here is a question that usually comes up at this point. What about market crashes? What if the economy tanks right when your portfolio hits a major milestone? That is a fair concern, and the answer is counterintuitive. If you are a consistent long-term investor, market crashes are not your enemy. They are your greatest advantage. When markets drop, your monthly $500 contribution buys more shares at lower prices. You are essentially getting stocks on sale. And when the market eventually recovers, and historically it always has, those extra shares bought during the dip explode in value. The worst years emotionally are often the best years mathematically for long-term investors. The people who panicked and sold during the 2008 crash or the 2020 crash locked in their losses permanently. The people who kept investing through those downturns, who kept their $500 a month flowing into the market, even when every headline screamed to run, saw their portfolios recover and then accelerate beyond previous highs. Consistency through chaos is what separates the rich Richards from the poor Peters of the world. And if that does not convince you, consider this. Every single major market crash in history has eventually been followed by new all-time highs. Every single one. And this brings us to the bigger picture, the part of wealth building that no YouTube title or thumbnail can really capture. When you zoom out and look at this entire journey, from the slow, painful crawl toward your first 100,000, through the quiet confidence of 500,000, to the validation of crossing 1 million, what stands out is not the money itself. It is what the process teaches you about patience, discipline, and the difference between what looks successful on the surface and what actually is successful underneath. Because wealth built this way is quiet. It does not show up in your wardrobe. It does not announce itself with a flashy car in the driveway or a designer watch on your wrist. It sits in brokerage accounts and index funds, compounding silently in the background while you go about your life. And the people who have it rarely talk about it because they learned something along the way. Real wealth is not about what you can show other people. It is about what you can afford to walk away from. And here is what nobody warns you about this kind of wealth building. It changes you as a person. Not in the way you might expect, where you become more confident or more relaxed, although both of those things happen. It changes you because the process itself is a character exercise. Every month that you choose long-term growth over short-term comfort, you are building discipline that spills over into every other area of your life. The person who can delay gratification with money can usually delay gratification with health, with career decisions, with relationships. The habits that make you wealthy also make you more patient, more resilient, and more thoughtful about how you spend your time. A job that makes you miserable, you can leave without panic. A business opportunity that excites you but carries risk, you can take the swing because failure will not ruin you. A year off to be with your kids during a critical phase of their lives, you can take it and know the portfolio will keep growing while you are not watching. That is the real end game. Not luxury, not status, not the ability to impress strangers at a dinner party. Freedom. The quiet, unglamorous, deeply personal kind of freedom that only comes from decades of doing the boring thing while everyone around you chase the shiny thing. And yes, this takes time. 20, sometimes 35 years for most people. But those years are going to pass regardless of what you do with your money. 35 years from now will arrive whether you invest or not. The only question is who you will be when it does. Someone wishing they had started when they first heard about compound interest, or someone quietly watching their portfolio add more in a single month than they used to earn in a year. The math does not care about your background, your education, or whether you grew up with money. It does not care about your salary, your job title, or which city you live in. It only cares about two things: how much you invest consistently and how long you leave it alone. That is the entire formula. Everything else is noise, so start where you are. $500 a month if you can. $300 if that is what you have. Even $100 a month is a snowball that will eventually roll on its own. The amount matters less than the consistency, because the first 100,000 is hard. The second milestone at 500,000 is where everything shifts. And the million, that is just what happens when you refuse to quit before the math finishes doing its work. Rich Richard understood that. He did not have a higher salary. He did not have better luck. He did not have access to some secret fund or insider strategy. He just understood, earlier than poor Peter, that the $400 going into the car payment every month was not just a purchase. It was a decision about who he would be 25 years later. And he chose the version of himself that could walk away from anything rather than the version that looked like he already could. That choice is available to every person watching this right now.